Hi, and welcome to episode 3. I hope you enjoyed episode 2 with Stephen Parker. Today I have with me my good friend Kevin Whittaker, who is currently a compliance manager. I look forward to taking you through Kev's journey, how we met, what he's up to within the business, and we'll give you a bit of a inside look to what a compliance manager's role might be within a business like ours. So, firstly, Kev, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
No problems.
I suppose the best place to start off with, Kev, is let the audience know a little bit about you and your journey in your career to date.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, so as you said, I'm the compliance manager. I started here in 2022.
Yeah.
My career has been military focused throughout the bulk of my life.
Yeah.
Which I joined the military, the army, in 1997 as a combat medical technician.
Yeah.
And throughout my career, I've served on numerous operations in Kosovo, Iraq, Afghanistan, Northern Ireland, mainly in sort of healthcare operations, and then luckily in a leadership role. So there was lots of experience in terms of working with people,
Yeah.
interacting, and working in a sort of health and safety sort of environment as
Yeah.
well, in many respects. Although people would assume that the military by nature, is very risky environments. That risk is always mitigated. So there's a lot of relevance to my current position as a compliance manager, and what's within the military.
So it sounds like you've had some fantastic experiences there, going to all those different places and sites and things that you must have experienced in your life. Not a lot more than I have. I imagine being behind my desk for quite a lot of years. Has there been some favoured memories in that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I am well travelled by the nature of the job. Some places not quite as exotic as you might assume, but in and amongst that, I've travelled around. I've spent a lot of time in Kenya actually in military exercises.
Yeah.
I say 11 times I've been across there. And I loved working in the that type of environment. Felt very sort of like exploration, the excitement of working in areas that are quite remote. One in particular, I think the first time I ever went out there, actually, we were doing a vaccination program for children under 5 in the Narok region, which is sort of south, and it was very much sort of going out into the wilds, these very small villages, and these, we'd set up these tents in the middle of the field, and out of the bushes came these robed, these Maasai warriors, and the families all in tow, and obviously there's a lot of interest in what we were actually doing, and it just felt as though we were really, delivering something with a real purpose, making a difference, and changing lives for the better.
Yeah. I mean, I bet we could do a full podcast on all the different things that you've been on with your journey with the army career. But where did that take you? So you retired from the army.
Yeah, so I did up to 24 years, just short of 25 years in the military, of which 22 years of that was regular service, and then I got a contract on a full-time regular reserve, which was an administrative officer of an army reserve unit not too far away from here in Chorley. So it was a bit of a stepping stone for me, if you like. I've gone from the sort of the intensity of working in the regular army, in a quite nomadic sort of life where I was unaccompanied from my family, where that stepping stone as the administrative officer, and that enabled me to be able to settle in Wigan and just sort of work at a slightly different pace and adjust back to civilian life. So it worked well for me.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, and I know I do, so maybe I'll tell the story for this one. So Kevin's son works for the business, Clayton, and Clayton had been on a couple of projects with myself that we got out of areas. So So we were going down to York, I believe, doing this void, and we were staying over. And conversations with Clayton were quite easy. He was always very open with what he's talking about. And I remember very clearly we're travelling back from York. He's in charge of the radio, blasting out all these tunes and stuff. And we got onto the conversation about his dad. And he says, just dead randomly, he said, I think, would you be able to help my dad? I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, well, he's not quite, he's finished the army and he's not 100% sure what he wants to do. I think he'd make a really good joiner. And I went, all right. I said, yeah, he said he loves DIY and he's always interested in what I'm doing. And, I think it'd be really good for him. And my brain, as it does, is clicking away thinking, someone who's been in the army for 24 years, been around all these experience, been in leadership positions, there must be something else that we can find for Kev. And that initially started our first phone conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah,
which, from conversation we'd had with Clayton to, come on Kev, let's come in and have a chat. And I have to say, I hit it off with Kev straight away. What he mentioned before about having a purpose, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying so, but I felt maybe a little bit that you'd lost a bit of your purpose and you weren't quite sure, what it is that you wanted to do next.
Yeah.
And I felt that UPS could really give him that fresh sense of purpose, and we'll go into like his role as rather than going down the trade route, we've used Kev's people skills, his processes skills to really help solidify and lock in and make some great improvements from all our processes within the company. I would say. So, do you want to take over a bit from there, from that telephone conversation to?
Absolutely. So that was exactly the scenario in which I, over a long career, had developed a lot of sort of skills. The army was very much process driven, policy and procedure. But it was quite difficult for me to be able to understand my own level of skill, because it had always been within a military concept. So I was, on leaving the military, I was finding it quite difficult to find where my position would be. I'd gone on a number of career fairs where there was lots of corporate companies branded out there. They're quite interested in ex-military personnel, but I personally couldn't quite see where I would fit into that organisation. And so that sort of opportunity that I was given when I came across to UPS was very much, come and see what it's like, see where you can fit in. And I was given an opportunity. There was no pressure. It was a case of, come and see how we operate as a company, come and see what you can deliver. And I have to say that the military, has, a very strong core value. I can even recite them off today, as in courage, discipline, respect, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment. And for the same reasons, I started to see, similarities within UPS. With the mantra of changing lives for the better. The core values that we all carry on our cards. The fact that it gave me a sense of purpose again. It was very much, there is a place for you. There is something that you can bring to the party. And then it was almost like you'd unlock the box as soon as you'd.
I saw it from day one, Kev. I said that to you. I know. I just felt there was much more. Those transferable skills to me were just, they were banging me in the head with a hammer. I was like, there's so much of your skill set that can be transferred into the business world, and I think they've transferred well, and I think you've made a great difference on so many things. It's been a pleasure to have you on board, really, because them skill sets that anyone that is leaving the army that might think it's not transferable, I think you're living proof of how quickly you managed to. It might take, we had 6 months of discovering maybe what the role might be. But we soon found one, and to be honest, your list keeps growing, doesn't it?
It's constantly evolving. I've been given the opportunity to develop academically as well. I'm currently working, my way through the NEBOSH qualification, level 6 qualification in health and safety. this has been, a real, exciting journey for me. That there's still a long way for me to take it in terms of, the role and responsibility. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
What do you think the hardest part from, only just in case there's any listeners that are from that, what do you think from an army background, what do you think one of the hardest thing is transferring from that, going from that to that civilian life? Is it finding your purpose, finding your place, or is it one of many?
It sounds, I'm trying to think of the word here. So, there's, in the nature of the military, that the courage in the nature of the job going into hostile environments. Leaving the military is very much the fear of the unknown, not knowing where you're going to fit into civilian life. 24, 25 years is a long time to be away from what is perceived to be a very different lifestyle. So it is very much you leave the military very confident in your own ability. I left as a WO1 Brigade Sergeant Major with a brigade of 1,500 soldiers, where I had lots of responsibility, and it was just not knowing what can you do next after that. Where was I going to fit in? And as I said, I quickly discovered on moving to UPS that absolutely there was a place. So in terms of advice, to anybody leaving the military with the same anxieties about it, it's just that the world is your oyster. Very much the same as when they first started off on the military career and pathway. Loads of opportunities within a military concept. It's exactly the same, once you leave the military.
That's, I think that would be helpful for anyone that's listening to that. Yeah, for sure. So for anyone then that wants to know what comes under the compliance, which is quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your role at UPS. Which bits you're finding most challenging, which the bits you're most buzzing with that we've improved. Because I know there's quite a few that I'm buzzing that we've improved. But...
Absolutely. So in the it's a very multifaceted role, whether that be through title alone, what is compliance, so how it's developed certainly in the time that I've been here. So the key responsibilities being overseeing the quality management system along with the environmental management system within the company. And what is that? That's the accreditation. So we wear these badges on our arms, to say that we're meeting a standard. We've got to live up to that standard, So it's ensuring that the policies and processes that we have in place, the ISO audit standards, and aside from that, ensuring that just day-to-day practical processes that we have in place. We're not just, saying that we've got a standard. We're actually taking practical approach and ensuring that from the operatives working out on the coalface, so to speak, are delivering that quality of service rather than just me sat behind a computer, putting the information together. It's making sure that those the site audits are up to standard and what's actually happening on the ground.
I think that's been one of the big benefits of having someone that's full-time and taking ownership of it, is the time that you've taken to learn and understand those processes has been a massive advantage also, hasn't it? Because we've in the past used external companies to help us through our management systems, and again, when you do that, you don't pay as much attention to it to understand it. I'm not saying that there's no right or wrong answer, by the way, in which route you go down, but certainly I've found since we've took it on board internally, we have a wider understanding of it, as a better understanding of it with the team. So Kev, just for the audience, anyone who might want to understand the compliance manager role a bit, I know it's quite vast on what we do here, but it might be interesting for people what your day-to-day routine might be, or your main core responsibilities. I know that's quite vast, isn't it, just by the nature of the word compliance, but just run us through a briefing for the audience.
Yeah, I suppose, compliance as a sort of a standalone responsibility is ensuring that the company is living up to the accreditations that we carry on our t-shirts, put them on our signature block. make sure that we're following a set procedure to ensure that the quality management system and the environmental management system is to the standard that it needs to be.
Yeah.
So that's everything from what happens at with the operatives, where they're delivering the quality of product, the materials that we are using, and ensure that that is being captured. Any products that are not non-conforming products, for example, we are learning from any mistakes or the culture that we've got, any constantly evolving to improve upon the system.
I think for us as well as a business, I'm not saying there's no right or wrong, but before Kev started, we used to have an external resource that would come in and help us with our auditing process to get us ready for rechecks. Kev's actually managed through now being able to look at the management systems, process it, learn it, be able to communicate it much better, I feel, within the team, that we now don't use that outside resource, do we, anymore?
That's
We've
right.
managed to do it ourselves, and we're still passing with flying colours, which I know you don't like taking credit for it, Kev, and whenever I do, you always say it's a team effort, and you're right, there is a team that's involved, but I think that's, for me, it's been a great advantage having that internally, because as a team, we understand what having these management, what we actually understand what our accreditation is for, rather than it just being a badge on your t-shirt. And I feel the team is a lot more involved in it.
Well, it's just that interpretation about what is, the ISO 9001, does the operative on the ground understand what that sign on his van actually stands for? It's about putting that interpretation to a level that they can understand. It doesn't have to be the whole process. It's just the point that it is relative to them, and understanding the bigger picture. So in terms of consultation, don't get me wrong, it was a learning curve. I absorbed all of the information that we got from the specialists that came into the company, but I was very fortunate that a lot of those processes were already established and rooted within UPS. It was for me to then look to develop them and understand them better, which again, very much, there's another comparative skill there with my previous career. I even though I came under the British Army as a title or a soldier, I was used to changing jobs every 2 to 3 years. This was very much, the same for me in terms of a new environment. I needed to become a subject matter expert. That was my responsibility within the role. And I was able to do that, whether that be from previous experience.
Certainly helped you, I think, that hasn't it?
Yeah. So in terms of the broader aspects of the role, I'm developing a bit of a team at the moment in terms of operational support, and this is all about the compliance and the quality management systems that we've got in place. The team that we're developing is within materials. The management of that, ensuring that the operatives are getting the materials that they need, the right quality of material. The process is
it's quite a big task, that one, isn't it? Because we've had a lot of historic stock being in vans not accounted for, understanding the management system that we use properly to be able to it's like you can't, to understand it, you almost have to dissect it into those.
Absolutely, and it's been a, it's work in progress. We'll always be looking at sort of developing and improving our systems. But what was I think was critical within the company was accountability. Everybody needed to be accountable for their actions within the company, and I think that we are, we're in a position where we've improved upon that.
I think the fleet's been another big tackle, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
We have, well, you'll know the exact number. I'm going to guess at 76, but is it 71?
Yes, we're at 77 vehicles.
77? Oh, not far off it. Oh,
so the fleet is continuously growing. We've just procured another four brand new vehicles for the fleet. And as the operations expand, as do the fleet. And it's as a like to say, it forms probably the it initially formed the largest part of my day-to-day work, was making sure that the fleet was maintained to the standard. That it wasn't then impacting on operations. We're in a much better place because we've got on top of that. We've adopted new processes within the company to ensure that those regular inspections and maintenance and accountability from an operative or driver's perspective, has made the change. So we've got all of our vehicles on the road at any given time. They all look how they should do.
Yeah, and I think another thing again for maybe our viewers, but if you can put the time and effort into it does save you time. It saves you having to be less reactive all the time, doesn't it? There's always going to be reactive issues, but if you can get on top of it and put processes in place. We just renewed our insurance with our vehicles, didn't we? And for a change, it's gone down instead of up, and that's because the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years, isn't it? With reducing instances and the systems that we've put in place, we're able to prove to the insurance company the efforts that we're putting in to improve things, and it's made a real difference, hasn't it?
Yeah. So with process, you don't always see the immediate benefits of it, but now we're starting to see that those efforts made 12, 24 months ago are paying dividends. That we can quantify in terms of the cost of insurance, the cost of maintenance of the fleet. All of those things are now coming together, and we're seeing those benefits. The cost saving that's coming from that. So yeah, for me, as sad as it sounds, I get a buzz from that kind of thing, where I can start to see that actually we are making a difference.
Yeah, no, me too, because it's a real visible thing to be able to see, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
So, that's great, Kev. It's a real great insight to your role. I hope the viewers have enjoyed that. I think that's a wrap.